Hi, everyone. Welcome to Firm. Mark Merrill here. Our topic today is Maine public safety. Compromised? Well, if we read you this bill that's supposedly going to be passing through more committees and possibly even some more hearings, we'll find out. You may not like it. But we have to stand up, folks, for our rights and freedoms. And here's two of our representatives right here who are going to see to it that make sure that it doesn't pass. Now, a review of LD 1457 is what we're going to be doing here, folks, with perspective viewpoint from House GOP Representative you see here, Laurel Libby, and also House Minority Leader currently, Billy Bob Faulkingham. Now, what we're going to do first is get to the summary page so that we can give Laurel Libby a little bit of her information on it. I'll give you a rundown of it first, though, folks. It is a resolve bill to allow the Maine Turnpike Authority to conduct a pilot program to implement automated speed control systems in highway work zones. That's right. Now, the up-to-the-minute last action on it through committees and sponsors, folks, took place on February 26th. Yes, February 26th. The Transportation Committee started in April of 2025, voted on in February of 2026. A work session came along in May of 2025, though. Before that, it was tabled. Carryover requested 15 days later. Carryover approved. Work session held. Tabled again. Finally getting into January of 2026, more recently. Work session held on February 26th. Work session held as well that day. Voted on, and a motion was made by a Representative Bishop, seconded by a Representative Perry. Majority was by Republicans Dan Anchiles, Steve Bishop, Lydia Crafts, Holly Eaton, Senator Brad Farron, Rick Mason, Karen Montel, Tim Nangle, Wayne Perry, Teresa Pierce, and Mike Ray as ought to pass. Ought not to pass was only one person, Representative James White. And now, folks, we're going to go to Representative Libby's statements and give you her statement that she gave not that long ago. It's a bit of a process here, folks. A little bit of a stumble there. We do apologize for that. However, we do have all of the details that we do need to present you the facts, common sense, and reality of the situation, as you know that we here at Firm take very seriously on a regular basis. So we're going to put up this one in particular here, folks, as it's Representative Libby's turn first. As we move our camera a little bit better so you can see that she is the one that we'll be referring to here in a March 9th post that she gave out to the general public and anyone who subscribes to her site, laurellibby.com. As you can see at the very top above her picture there is LD 1457. She starts off with the subject, "Do you approve of automated surveillance and tracking of citizens?" Quoting Ms. Libby in her letter here, her statement. Telling everybody in Augusta and the state of Maine that concerns every Mainer's liberty. She says if LD 1457 is passed, it would put automated speed cameras on the Maine Turnpike for the first time in state history. Private companies would operate the cameras and help decide who gets fined and build a searchable database of where Maine drivers travel, all without a warrant. Nope, no permission. Worst part? Every committee member, Democrat, Republican alike, with the exception of Representative Jim White, as we just mentioned, voted to track you and your family's movements in our state's highways. And she says, I couldn't believe it that so many Republicans sold out our civil liberties so quickly. Maine law currently bans this technology, folks. Speaking to you in March of 2026. Current law prohibits the state from using cameras to enforce traffic violations. The only exceptions are school bus cameras and turnpike toll collection. This LD 1457 tries to use word games to give DOT authority despised against the ban remaining Maine law. The bill has real problems. Fine the registered owner of a vehicle $100 per offense. Even if someone else was driving, your registration could be suspended if you don't pay. A private company would be involved in reviewing disputed tickets, and all the detailed rules, like how fast you have to be going or how much grace you get, would be set through an opaque rulemaking process. Oh, gee, it means we can't talk to a real person that pulls us over? Sorry, officer, was I going too fast? Oh, what do you need? Oh, of course, license and registration. And it also says in her notice here, folks, here it is, what we're reading from, dated March 9th, 2026. You can go on her website and find it, folks. LaurelLibby.com, LaurelLibby.com. You'll find it. She also goes on to say, folks, that automating fines is not a public safety, it's a revenue grab. Towns like Auburn, Lewiston, South Portland have already started using license plate reader cameras from a company called Flock Safety, in some cases installed with federal grant money and no public vote or citizen knowledge. Isn't that lovely? So you should contact your lawmakers about this one, folks. Ask your state representative or senator to vote no on LD 1457. Oppose or vote no. Here's a sample of what she put down as the way you should issue your statement or your request by letter or by email. Dear Representative or Senator, my name is, I am writing to urge you to please vote against LD 1457. Maine banned traffic surveillance cameras in 2009 for a good reason. The bill tries to get around that ban without actually changing the law. It would let private companies operate speed cameras on the turnpike, fine car owners who may not have been driving, and build a database of where Mainers travel, all via opaque rulemaking authority. There are better ways to ensure safety on the highways that do not require tracking the movements of law-abiding citizens. Does that come through loud and clear? Don't mean to have the level of my voice get away from me, folks, but this is absolute tyranny, treason, and the ultimate slap in the face to any law-abiding citizen that lives within the borders of this state. Want to play nasty? Mills. Democrats, deflectocrats, rhinos. We can invoke the Second Amendment, you know. Try that one on for size. Just saying. You can share her email, folks, and forward it to friends, families, and neighbors. The more lawmakers hear from everyday Mainers, the harder it is to push this through. Your voice matters more than you know. Now, as we move on, ladies and gentlemen, have, of course, both Laurel Libby and Billy Bob Faulkingham, as you can see here. We are now going to get to the summary page, which is on the back side of this bill, which initially came across not that long ago to be heard in committee. So, with that, we'll bring that up so you at least can see it, folks, and we will point out pieces and parts of this bill that are quite ridiculous. We can bring this up a little bit closer for you folks in just a moment. But once again, I tell you and show you that the bill is right there, LD 1457. Resolved to allow the Maine Turnpike Authority to conduct a pilot program, grant you, a pilot program. Some of you may be thinking, well, now, just a minute there, Mr. Merrill. Aren't you kind of jumping the gun there a little bit, getting a little bit terse when it comes to the description of violating Mainers' driving rights and privileges and being not having to be pulled over and having our freedoms to drive violated? If it's a pilot program, it's beyond the pilot program, folks. When did this first happen? Right here. Right there. April of 2025. This is your wonderful legislature, your majority of Democrat legislators, kicking the can down the road as far as they can just to get Janet Mills through her second term and move on to try and unseat Susan Collins. That's all it is. It's a dodge. Why do you think we call them deflectocrats? Oh, it can wait. Here is that summary right there, folks. And we're going to point it out to you just to hold it up a little bit closer to the screen for you in just a moment. This resolve authorizes the Maine Turnpike Authority to conduct a pilot program, as said, to implement up to 3 automated speed control systems at a time in highway work zones on limited access highways in the state for 3 years. The system produces an image of a motor vehicle exceeding the posted speed limit by 11 miles an hour or more in the highway work zone, including the motor vehicle's license plate number, and a notice of violation is sent to the owner of the motor vehicle, who is subject to a warning for a first offense and a fine for a second or subsequent offense. The system is maintained by an operator. Oh, one person. Is that right? What if they're out sick someday? The system is maintained by an operator who is responsible for calibrating the system and certifying that the system is in proper working order. This is the kicker, folks. Personally identifiable information of motor vehicle owners and motor vehicles captured by the system is confidential and not a public record under the Freedom of Access Act. There it is in highlighted pink, folks. I want to leave it up there for you so you can see what in the world we're talking about. This is a bunch of garbage. It's another power grab. Indeed. Right on the button, Ms. Libby, as per usual. And if it weren't for that, folks, we have an additional person to go ahead and give us the information that he will give us with his input from Billy Bob Faulkingham. As we caught up with him in Augusta recently, and here's what he had to say in regard to this proposed LD 1457.
Are you familiar, real quick here, with 1457 to allow Maine Turnpike Authority? Right, exactly, to conduct pilot program. Of course, Laurel Libby has been on top of this, like she always is, on the speed control systems, highway work zones, and all of that good stuff.
Yep, I'm opposed to it. I think it's a Fourth Amendment violation. Of course, I have a lot of sympathy for the people that have been killed in work zones. I have a lot of concern for that. I want to see work zones heavily enforced. My suggestion is to have more law enforcement presence. I don't have a problem with law enforcement having a camera on their cruiser or on their person, but what I do have a problem with is unmanned cameras surveilling people. I think that's a Fourth Amendment violation, and I know this is very limited, and they've said that it will only be in work zones, it will only be a trial period, it will only be this and that, but it's almost, I kind of bring the analogy to men and women's sports, where a lot of the opposition from the other side is saying it's only one person, it's only two people, and I say, well, what's the limit? If it's, is it, then all of a sudden if it's 10, is that enough to be a problem? Is it 20 is the problem? What's the number? And my argument is that one is too many, and it's the same with these cameras, So I think it's the foot in the door.
I'm sorry, do you see this as a result of the accident that took place, unfortunately, in Waterville, where the workers were hit by the woman in the van and that sort of thing, trying to stay on the highway without changing lanes?
I don't see it as a result of that, but I see that being weaponized for this. I think that this has been a movement that started long before those fatalities, one that will eventually turn into policing cameras everywhere, on every corner, on every, all over the interstates, all over everywhere. And I don't think we want to live in a society that's like communist China that has cameras everywhere. And even though I believe that the people that worked on this had good intentions and really weren't motivated by that, they were motivated by public safety and slowing down work zones, that this will be used as a foot in the door, a camel's nose under the tent, to expand more cameras, and I think we just need to say no to it right now, because once you start allowing one or two, then it, like I said, what's the limit?
Indeed, what is the limit? When does it stop? When does the nonsense stop? When does the narrative? When is the initiative? Where is the changes? Constant changes to Maine law, constantly. When is it? When's enough is enough, folks? Let us know. fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. Lastly, folks, we want to bring up the kiosk down there at the Maine State Public Safety offices as you walk in the building. The south side of the building there in Augusta. Now, we have noticed in this conclusion on the program about Maine public safety being compromised. Really? Possible. Sounds like it. But we noticed on this kiosk here, folks, the one that's on the top, not so much the Maine Department of Labor or the Maine of Administrative and Financial Services, but the top half right here, about 6 columns under the auspices of the Maine Department of Public Safety and the Maine State Police, by the way. How will these agencies or departments be affected when this should come into law after this so-called pilot program? What about the Maine State Police? What about the officers? Are they under scrutiny? Are their jobs on the line if these rules that are going to be forced into place, not abided by, not followed? What about the office of the state fire marshal? Right there. What about Maine Emergency Medical Services? What about the Maine Bureau of Highway Safety? What about the Maine Drug Enforcement Agency? What about the Bureau of Consolidated Emergency Communications? Maine Emergency Management. Heard of FEMA? I think you have. Not trying to be odd here, folks, but just want to make sure everybody understands how many agencies this will affect if this stupid law goes into effect. Just wanted you to be aware of it, folks. Contact your state representative or your state senator, folks. Make sure that they know about LD 1457, that it needs to be stopped. As always, Mark Merrill, keeping you informed here on FIRM, Fairness in Reporting Media. Contact us if you have more questions, folks, right here. All the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. We're also on X, YouTube, and Substack for podcasts 5 times a week. Stay safe, everyone. Pray. Pray a lot for changes in our state government, even in some of our local communities, towns, and cities, and that we have the changes that we need to get our state back in order, respectability, and to enjoy life the way it ought to be in vacation land. Peace to all.